Everything we need already exists inside of us. We hold the key to open the door to discover who we are and why we exist. Conversations help us find that truth. Relationships are vital. IDKY hopes to ignite your curiosity and perhaps give you courage to open the door. All right, welcome back to IDKY Podcast. We're here again with Shawn Schaefer, session 3. We're going to move on to another topic. You have 2 beautiful children, Emmy and Sammy.
Thank you.
And so tell us, when you decided that you thought adoption was going to be the path for you, kind of what did that look like? When did you decide?
So Kelly and I got married September 6, 2009. And so shortly after being married, and I'm sure really probably before we were married, it would have been natural to have been talking about the future and during our engagement, what does that look like? And in other words, we both knew we wanted to have a family. And as I had said, we were older. So by the time we got married, Kelly would have been 29 and I would have been 31. And so I think there was a part of us where we wanted to enjoy a period of time of our life together because our dating relationship had been long distance, right? So in other words, I think we probably went with the idea of, for the first 6 or 9 months or a year, let's just enjoy being married and enjoying each other's company. But some of those conversations led to that idea being brought up. And there aren't too many things that we would talk about looking back on and have different ideas of how it originated. This is one of those, though. Like, in other words, her memory and my memory are just a little different on this particular topic. But my recollection was that I had said to her kind of from the beginning that I think adoption makes sense for a lot of reasons. I'm not saying she was opposed, but I think there was some, I think she was open to that. I think she was also open to natural birth initially. And so the more we talked, the more it was like, okay, first of all, we went to multiple doctors who said, medically speaking, yeah, Kelly can get pregnant. No, that's not medically. There's no reason that can't happen. But it just seemed real clear that pregnancy was going to be really difficult on her, more so than others, and even for that matter, the recovery part of it afterwards, right? And so, for that reason, but not just that reason, it was it's pretty, as you get older and you realize there's a lot of kids that need love, and in our case, we had love to give. And so I guess I would just say, after some conversations, it was something we both felt called. And so then, we there was someone in our town, Dr. Wood and his wife, Kylie Wood and Shannon Wood. They have a family whereby they have 3 children through natural birth, and they have 4 adopted children. And so we reached out to them and just said, hey, would you be willing to come over and visit with us? Just have some questions to ask. And so they had come over to the house for about an hour or 2 one day. And I remember asking the question that was probably most weighing on me, and that is something to the effect of, what happens if, the adopted children have certain needs how do you handle that? Or what if you're not equipped? And I just remember, I don't remember clearly how I asked the question, but I remember vividly his answer or their answer was, Shawn, oftentimes our children through natural birth end up challenging us in more ways than our adopted children. And the reality is, as a parent, you're simply going to do the best you can, no matter the circumstances, to help your children when whatever challenge arises. And it was such an important message to hear. And so after they left, it was just the affirmation of, okay, let's move forward. And so then it became a matter of, little did we realize that the path forward could go so many different directions in terms of adoption agencies, and then the different countries that they have adoption programs established with. And then within those programs, there's so many different layers for countries, as far as whether there's different restrictions. And so that was eye-opening for us. And for that reason, it was almost as if the agency in the country almost selected us. By the time we had, and I say we, but it was mostly Kelly doing a lot of the research and gathering information. And so, sometimes there'd be a restriction. You had to be married for so many years. Sometimes you could only adopt older children or children with special needs. Sometimes the process lasted 5 years, or sometimes if you weren't in the best health, then you weren't a candidate. And like in Kelly's situation, as being a quadriplegic. So for a variety of reasons, when it was all said and done, we ended up finding an agency in a program where I almost feel like adoption programs almost have maybe a life cycle is not the right word for it, but the longer they're established, it seems like the more restrictions get put in place. And I don't know if that's entirely true, but this particular agency and this particular program through this country seem to have been established relatively recent. And so what it meant was, we were told that a child would be able to come home within 10 to 12 months. And getting back to the other restriction, a lot of times countries will require you to travel and live in country for a period of time. Well, that wasn't going to work because a lot of places aren't accessible from an ADA standpoint for Kelly. And so for all sorts of reasons, this particular agency, this particular country made the most sense and was pretty clear for us. What was, I guess, a little bit of a twist, it was January 3rd of 2012 when we filled out the paperwork for the agreement with our adoption agency. And I remember it vividly because January 3rd is my birthday. So I remember doing it then. And March of 2012, we were filling out paperwork. They're asking questions about the different aspects of the children that you're looking to adopt, such as like as young as possible, or certain age ranges, or genders, or things like that. And so it was in that moment that Kelly and I started talking about, and again, I think I had said it to her, but it really doesn't matter. But it was brought up, well, what if we look to adopt 2 instead of 1? And all of a sudden, in a short period of time, it became clear, like, yes, that is absolutely, because number one, the process is lengthy. And number 2, we just felt like it would be beneficial to have a companion on the journey. We don't have other children in the home. And so for them it wouldn't be as lonely.
Right.
So once we made that request and shared that with our family and friends, I would say, and more often than not, it was not well received, even by our closer inner circle, who admittedly were just looking at it through the lens of like care and concern,
Right.
but thinking like, how is that going to work?
Right.
And so again, thankfully, God has a better plan than we have for ourselves, because we had hoped that our children would come home basically before they had turned 1 as infants, and it didn't work out that way. My grandma Doe, who is an icon, been such a enormous blessing for all those who know her. She had said, Shawn, I just think God knew that if Sam and Emmy came home when they were 3, it'd be better because you'd be through the diaper phase and a lot of the challenges younger infants can provide. And so she has great wisdom. I those words could never come out of my mouth, because it was really difficult. We watched Sam and Emmy grow up for over 3 years in pictures, and we would get those pictures about once a month. And so
it was like you were away from your children. Like
Yeah.
your children were there and you were here, and
Yeah.
you just
You- yeah.
wanted your children.
Right. And I think all adoption journeys, I like to think, someone told me years ago, no two snowflakes are the same. And I feel like that with adoption journeys. I feel like no two adoption journeys are the same, no matter if it's international or domestic. And so in our case, what was originally believed to be 10 months turned into almost 3.5 years. And a lot of ebbs and flows during that time. There are a lot of times where you felt like you were moving 2 steps forward only to move 2 steps back. And that was a really, really difficult time in our marriage, because there are times where Kelly's struggling and I'm in a good spot or trying to pick her up, so to speak, and then it flips, and there's just these times where you know the other person is having a hard time, and you want to help but you can't.
Just don't have the strength.
Yeah. So, but thankfully, God gave us the stamina or the faith to stay the course. And even in that 3.5 years, there were lots of times where people around us were having doubts and questioning if we were being taken advantage of, or because the whole deal, it's all blind faith.
Yeah.
Like, you have 3 different entities and they each have their own agenda. You have an agency, you have the U.S. government, and you have the in-country government. And the information you're receiving, it's just hard to know if it's truthful,
right,
or if it's some other version. But it doesn't matter, because it's the only information you get, and you accept it and
because you don't have a choice.
Yeah. So,
but you're persistent.
Yeah,
which is what Kelly said.
Yeah, she would call it
persistent.
She would call it my greatest strength and weakness at the same time. Very, very true. There are times in my life where it has caused me problems, and then there are times where it has been beneficial. And I mean, certainly with meeting Kelly, and then in the journey with Sam and Emmy, I think
I can imagine even then you have to, are my kids safe? Like,
right.
Who's taking care of them? Are they reading books to them? Like, all those questions would probably just play in your mind.
That's exactly right. And yet, all of those questions were answered when my dad and I had the opportunity to travel there. So this would have been April of 2015. And originally the trip was planned where we were going to bring them home with us. And then again, yet another curveball. Right before we were leaving, found out that we still needed to go in country to do a few things. but they weren't going to be traveling home with us. And I wasn't prepared. I guess I didn't really think through what the other side of that trip was going to look like. So first, Kelly would have loved to have gone, but not possible. Not a
Right.
country where she could get around. So thankfully, my dad was willing and eager. And even that brought contention. Like, and it makes sense, right? We're traveling to this country that it was well known that there was a lot of conflict and sort of war. I'm trying to think of the way I want to describe it. But there were these rebellion armies that would cause a lot of, I mean, at different parts of the country, go around and a lot of killing and just lots of parts of the country that were not safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there was some concern from my sisters and my mom and some others, like that my dad was going, or that we would be asking that of him. And thankfully, he just had a conviction. He never wavered. And he and I went there. And interestingly enough, we were in Belgium on a connection, getting ready to board our connecting flight. And we get a notification, something to the effect of there's a lot of unrest in the capital city. This warning, do not travel there. And so at that point, I look at my dad and I'm like, I wasn't concerned for myself. Truly, I just felt like any parent would. You're not gonna stop. You're gonna go do whatever you need to do. But I was concerned. I didn't want to put him in that situation. And he was unfazed. He was like, we're going. And so what we land and we find out whatever they were talking about, we never saw it. There was never a point where there was any of that, thankfully.
Yeah.
And so we got to spend 2 days with them. They stayed with us in our hotel. So for 48 hours, unforgettable, in all the right ways.
What was that like?
Awesome.
Were they still frightened, or did they warm up? Or
Oh, they warmed up really
did.
quickly. And yet they didn't speak the language, so we couldn't communicate
Right.
with them. But they were so full of good energy. I mean, Emmy would sit on your lap and read a book, although you're not reading in a way that someone understands, but you're looking at Dora the Explorer and pictures. And Sam was all over the place. Loved, like, we had balls and playing with whatever, like filled with joy. Now, having said that, the first probably 10 minutes, there was some reservation and confusion for sure. But during the visit, we had the chance to talk, or I had the chance to talk with the foster care mom through a translator for about 45 minutes and ask questions. And it was then that I knew that they were well cared for, because this woman, she was originally supposed to care for him for 10 months, and it had been 3 years. And she was emotional. And she understood her role, but her role had changed from 10 months to 3 years. And I think when you care for someone for 3 years, a lot of love. And so there were tears in her eyes. And that part was really difficult, right? Like, here's this woman who had it in her to show them love and care for them, and forever grateful. So that was where, any of those concerns were put to rest.
Nice.
And that had a big thing. That was a key part to this whole program and country. We understood when we were pursuing this, that this particular agency had a foster care program. So once we accepted the referral, which was immediate, like, we received a picture of each of them. Yes, please. And then from that moment on, when they were 2 months old, they were cared for by this foster care mom. And so that's the part where once I had met with her, was at peace with that they were being shown love, and that's what mattered. So the part that I was not prepared for, the hardest part of life that I've experienced to this point in my life, I should say, was saying goodbye to them, because there was, again, the communication barrier. There was no explanation of, like,
Right.
you couldn't explain it.
anything.
You ignored it. So the notion of, like, walking the other way, that led to a few more months of just waiting and praying, and then the phone call came a few months later that said, okay, they're coming home, and that's where, like, the rest of it is just like water under the bridge, because they come home and all of a sudden there's no time to dwell on the past.
Yeah.
You're, like, immersed in raising a couple of toddlers that I mean, we laid down the first night and we were talking as our head hit the pillow, like, what, how do we do this? Because they're both 3.
Yeah.
They don't speak English at that point. Now they were a sponge, and it took them a month or 2 and they could acclimate to the point. I mean, speak it well enough to communicate. And yeah, at that point, there's just this realization of, okay, we're responsible for 2 humans, and how do we do this? But it led to a lot of awesome moments filled with surprise and delight, that a lot of things for them that were first that caught them off guard, that they were unfamiliar with, and in all the best sorts of ways led to surprise for them. And then you get to watch that and see
You had a very long pregnancy, so to speak, but it takes time to build up to handle a 3-year-old.
right.
And that was like cold.
There is no ramp.
No, there was no ramp, and 2 of them.
That's like the cliff, I guess. I don't know.
And I'm sure you were going on adrenaline, but yeah, that had to be. Usually, there's a little bit more of an ease in, or a.
It was something.
Yeah, I bet that was really hard for you to call Kelly and tell her that the kids weren't going to be able to come home for you.
So we knew that before we took the trip.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was shared with us
Okay,
a couple weeks
okay.
before. But the plans were already arranged,
Okay.
and we still needed to be in country. We FaceTimed her when we were over there,
Okay.
so she could
Oh, she could
communicate
see
that
that.
way.
Okay.
And then when they did come home, her mom and I flew to, how am I drawing a blank? I want to say Washington, D.C., but regardless. And then they were brought to us there. Then her mom and I flew with them from Washington, D.C. to Louisville. And in Louisville is where Kelly and a lot of the rest of our family was waiting. I think for a mother, it had to be gut-wrenching when you want to be a part of those moments, and there's
Yeah.
a delay and a delay. But in
So
true
did she-
Kelly fashion, she never dwelled on that stuff. She just
Yeah,
embraced,
we're here now.
yeah.
So you didn't go back to the Congo. They brought them here.
Correct.
And then, wow, those 2 kids being taken on an airplane with probably a complete stranger. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a lot. Like, they had to be thinking, what's going on? But good that they had each other.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And that's what's been beautiful to watch in the almost 11 years they've been home. They're just super loyal to each other. I mean, they have their moments like all siblings where they
Right.
bicker and banter and stuff, but all siblings are, I think, loyal, or most siblings are growing. I mean, I'm close with my sisters, but theirs almost seems like another level.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. They've
it's
been
pretty
through-
awesome,
they've
and
been
they're the
through a
same
lot
age, and they
together.
go through things
Yeah.
at the same time. They have, it's impressive. They have their own friend groups, but Emmy can hang around with Sam and his friends, and vice versa, and it works. And
Yeah.
um,
And they are siblings, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
yeah,
Tell me what you love about Emmy and what you love about Sammy.
that should just be real easy. There's a lot I love, and I guess that's why
I know.
I'm short.
You're not going to have as much
Yeah.
time as you'd probably like.
Right,
but
right. So let's just get to the point. So with Emmy, from the beginning, and it's still true, like, big smile. In fact, when we decided on the name Emmy, I'm almost certain that the name meant smile, and it seemed
Okay.
very fitting. Just has an incredible sense of wisdom for a young, and always has, like at a young age, would just say things that were so on point that even adults wouldn't, and brings a lot of joy.
When I met her, I would say I felt warmth from her. Like,
You picked up on the right
yeah,
vibe.
yeah.
That's who she
I
is.
didn't get a chance to bug Sammy yet, but what can you tell us about him?
Yeah. So Sam, um, a few things. He is equally, if not more, persistent than I am,
Okay.
which I think will serve him well. But at times, he and I, it causes us some friction. Um, but very persistent, super talented. Like our neighbors, when he was younger, would call him the human spring. Um, he could stand in the yard and do a, like, I don't know if I'm using the right term, but a standing back flip or tuck on in the grass. When he was younger, he would dance on his head. So like at a wedding reception, all of a sudden he's just spinning on his head, and people, all of a sudden there's a circle around him because everybody's in awe of.
What he's doing.
Yeah, and athletically gifted, shifty. My dad would say when he was young, he's all boy, and I didn't really know what that meant, but he likes adventure and adrenaline, and he has a curiosity about things, and he's willing to try things. Doesn't matter, water skiing, snow skiing. He, in some ways, may be the best cook in our family. Some of that comes through Dana, our family friend,
Yeah.
who is.
Well, and I was saying, when you said he likes adrenaline, I would suggest keeping away from Chris. Because that would probably not be a good conversation.
Yeah.
Chris's adrenaline and his might not be a good.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I sometimes refer to Chris as Superman.
Yes.
But and Chris has done some things to help him that I couldn't do, like helped him learn how to ride a dirt bike at a younger age. They've shot off rockets or done drone things that are kind of outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then Sam is good at exploring why something works or how to make it work or fix, or
Well, glad that they're here with you now.
it's incredible.
The wait was worth it.
That's a lot of times how it works in life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly
Persistence,
Yeah.
patience. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time. We're going to have one more session with Shawn Schaefer and find out what more he knows and what more he can talk about. Have a great day and stay blessed, y'all.